All right, everyone. The other day, Trump made an interesting suggestion for a migrant league of fighters. Yes, it would be like UFC style. The idea is that you have like normal UFC, and you have your champions and stuff like that. But you could have a separate UFC going for people that are illegally in the United States, and they get a champion too. And then at the end, you have the actual American person, someone who's a citizen, fighting the migrant challenger. And he was like, well, they got some tough hombres, so they might very well win. It's an interesting suggestion. It's not necessarily one that I would fully endorse. I think we should be having a UFC-style thing for prisons. To clear out the prison system, what you can do is you take the lesser offenders and have like a UFC prison championship, and you like knock years off their sentence, or load their commissary or something like that, and then you make a shit ton of money, make prisons profitable again, so the taxpayers don't have to prop them up. And then for people who are in for like much longer sentences, you have fights to the death. So it's beyond UFC. It's like literally gladiatorial combat, and you get 8 people in there. And they kill each other, then there's 4, then there's 2, and then only 1 survives, and then they get to go to house arrest with an ankle monitor or something like that. I think that's a good idea. Of course, certain, classes of crime like serial killers, it would not be available for that, of course. Some people thought that I wanted to let serial killers out simply because they're better at killing. That's not exactly what I meant. I'm not talking about that class of felons. But Trump has an interesting idea here. You could raise money, but everyone's going to conceive of this as bigoted. Now, most people won't care because they're more interested in the border crisis and the impact that it has on actual voting U.S. citizens. But, some people use this as fodder against Trump. They'll claim that migrant is a race, basically. Well, it's not. There are people that have migrated illegally to the country, overstayed visas or whatever, and they don't come from Latin America at all. A lot of people don't seem to realize this. There are hundreds of thousands of illegals in the country from Poland, and plenty more from other Eastern European countries. Increasingly, they're coming from China. Increasingly, they're coming from parts of Southeast Asia. Because of the open border policy, it's becoming easier and easier for people to filter across, and nothing's really being done about it. Trump is essentially trying to turn lemons into lemonade. It has dawned on Trump, I believe, based on his recent comments, that it is not possible to go door to door and deport every illegal in the country. I pointed this out in 2016. People jumped down my throat. You'd have to suspend the Fourth Amendment because you would literally have to go into private residences without any warning, without a properly issued warrant, in order to document everyone, and then kick the people out that were illegally in the country. It's not physically feasible. Some of these people have been registered. I mean, there are blue states and blue cities that are putting them up in hotels and stuff. You can clear those out. That's perfectly fine. You can retroactively process them. See, you're an asylum seeker, but clearly you're not, and so you get on the bus, basically. You can do that, but you can't get them all. You could deport a few million people at most. It'd be helpful economically, socially, etc., but it wouldn't also solve the longer-term problem. The longer-term problem is simply the fact that the border's open to begin with. Well, it doesn't matter how many people you deport because they can just come right back. The best thing to do is shut the southern border by finishing the border wall and expanding it, by the way, making it even more beefy than Trump had in mind. Retrofit it all, make sure the southern border is actually defended, have a constitutional amendment forcing the federal government to continue to guard the southern border so this problem doesn't happen again. And you can tamp down on the number of people that are coming in. That takes a lot of pressure off the system. Would it take time? Yes. Would it take money and manpower? Yes. Is it necessarily feasible in the political sense? No, not necessarily. Depending on the incarnation of Congress, they might do everything that they can to try to stonewall Trump if he does get reelected in trying to defend the border. Now, the money will be there, but they can throw up a bunch of other legal roadblocks too, and I have no doubt that they would do that. Even if the Republicans control the House and Senate after the election, they still will. Trump and the Migrant League of Fighters, imagine you could figure out a way to reabsorb some of the economic damage from people illegally migrating into your country. Well, it's a novel idea. It's just one that I don't think the average person would find palatable. I would say that I don't really have an ethical complaint about it, though. You already have UFC. If people are signing up voluntarily, they're like, hey, I migrated illegally to this country. They're pledging to give me money if I beat people up. Hey, I'm built like a brick shit house. Oh, I've been doing this since I was 12 years old in Mamacita's house, and I've been beating people up anyway. I can get paid for this? Man, you Americans are weird. And then they sign up. It also offers a way forward as well, and some economic upward mobility for people who, in some cases, they have relatively limited means. I know that it's a big thing that we're giving free money to people who illegally migrated, but it's still not a living wage. There are other benefits involved that allow them to have an existence, and we can't do it perpetually. But ultimately, once that money does dry up, and it will, they've got to find a job or something like that, or get into a college. There's got to be something going on. Otherwise, they do actually get marked for deportation. If they want to fall broadly under like the DREAM Act or something similar to that, there has to be some attempt being made. Otherwise, they end up in organized crime or homeless or something like that. By the way, those huddled masses, hell, you're probably better off in fucking Mexico City if you're destitute, honestly, at the end of the day, than going to Chicago. At least the weather is going to be nicer. That's about all. Peace out.